Here's something that will blow your mind. Neanderthals went extinct 40,000 years ago. Their last footprints disappeared from caves in Spain. Their fires went cold. History says they're gone. But here's the truth. Nobody tells you. Between 2 and 4% of your DNA is Neanderthal. Right now. Inside your cells. They didn't disappear. They're still alive in you. Before we go deeper, I need to ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Have you ever taken a DNA test? Drop your country in the comments. You'll want to know why that matters in a minute. Now, here's where it gets strange. If you're European, Asian, or from the Americas, you carry Neanderthal genes. But if your ancestors never left Africa, you have almost none. 0. And both groups are the same species. Homo sapiens, same humans, different DNA. 50,000 years ago, our ancestors walked out of Africa. They crossed into the Middle East. And there, in the cold mountains and forests, they met Neanderthals. And they didn't just meet them. They had children with them. Those hybrid children survived. They had their own children. And generation after generation, Neanderthal DNA spread through every human population outside Africa. So here's the question that keeps scientists awake at night. If we replaced Neanderthals, why do we carry their genes? And if we mixed with them, did we really replace them at all? But here's the part that makes no sense. Some populations kept this DNA and thrived. Others lost it completely. And until recently, nobody knew why. Let's talk about what happened to that Neanderthal DNA in Africa. People assume Africans don't have Neanderthal genes because their ancestors never met Neanderthals. That's wrong. The real reason is darker. Natural selection erased it. In 2016, researchers from UCLA and Harvard made a discovery. Dr. Ivan Jurich and his team studied thousands of genomes. They found something disturbing. Neanderthal genes carried harmful mutations, small ones, not deadly, but weak enough that over thousands of years, evolution slowly removed them from human populations. But here's the twist. In Africa, this happened faster, much faster. Why? Because the genes that helped humans survive in cold Europe became liabilities in hot, disease-filled Africa. Immune genes that fought off northern viruses made Africans more vulnerable to malaria and tropical diseases. So natural selection did what it does best. It deleted them. Your environment doesn't just shape your culture, it decides which ancient DNA gets to stay in your bloodline and which gets erased. But thousands of miles away, in the mountains of Asia, something completely different happened. Neanderthal DNA didn't just survive there, it became a superpower. And the population that kept the most Neanderthal DNA? You're not going to believe who it is. Most people think Europeans have the most Neanderthal DNA. Makes sense, right? Neanderthals lived in Europe. Wrong. East Asians carry 40% more Neanderthal DNA than Europeans. 40%. And both groups mixed with Neanderthals at the same time in the same regions. In 2013, Dr. Jeffrey Wall published a study in the journal Genetics. His team analyzed 42 individuals from around the world. So they measured how much Neanderthal DNA each population carried. East Asians had almost 10% Neanderthal ancestry in certain gene regions. Europeans had much less. Nobody expected that. Two theories tried to explain it. First theory, maybe there was a second wave of interbreeding in Asia that Europeans missed. Second theory, maybe East Asian populations kept these genes on purpose, because they were useful. Turns out, the second theory was right. Those Neanderthal genes gave East Asians something critical, stronger immune systems. Researchers at Harvard Medical School found that Neanderthals passed down HLA genes. These are the genes that help your body recognize viruses and bacteria. Without them, you can't fight infections. When humans entered Asia 50,000 years ago, they faced diseases they'd never seen before. New viruses, new bacteria, and Neanderthal DNA saved them. But here's the part nobody talks about. Those same genes that saved your ancestors, they're hurting you now, because every survival advantage has a cost. Let's talk about what Neanderthal DNA is doing to you today. Those immune genes that protected ancient humans from viruses, they now increase your risk for Crohn's disease, lupus, type 2 diabetes, severe allergies, autoimmune disorders that attack your own body. In 2018, Harvard Medical School released a massive study. They analyzed 500,000 people in the UK. They found over 4,000 Neanderthal gene variants still active in modern humans. These variants affected 47 different traits: immune function, how your body burns calories, even how your skin reacts to sunlight. The DNA that helped humans conquer Europe and Asia is now responsible for some of the biggest health problems in modern medicine. Evolution doesn't care about your future. It only cares if you survive long enough to have children. Neanderthal genes helped ancient humans live to 30, but now we live to 80. And those same genes are causing problems evolution never predicted. But immunity wasn't the only gift Neanderthals gave us. They also gave us something that changed human history forever. Something that separated us from every other species on the planet. And it all comes down to one gene, a gene that controls speech. In 2001, scientists discovered a gene called FOXP2. They found it by accident. A British family had a genetic mutation that made it almost impossible for them to speak, saying their brains couldn't control the muscles needed for language. That gene became known as the language gene. Fast forward to 2007. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute in Germany did something incredible. They sequenced Neanderthal DNA from a 43,000-year-old fossil, and they found something shocking. Neanderthals had the exact same version of FOXP2 as modern humans, the same two mutations, the same gene. That means Neanderthals could speak. Think about what that means. For decades, scientists assumed language was what made us special. The reason we survived and they didn't. But if they could talk too, then what was the difference? The answer is subtle. Both species could speak. But modern humans had slightly better neural wiring, faster processing, better grammar, and most importantly, we built bigger social networks. We shared knowledge across entire continents. Neanderthals lived in small bands of 20 or 30. We built tribes of hundreds. Language didn't just help us survive, it helped us remember. Every generation passed down what the last generation learned. That's how we outlasted them. But language wasn't the only advantage we inherited from extinct species. There's another gene, one that came from a species we barely even knew existed, and it allows an entire population to survive where everyone else would die. Let me introduce you to the Denisovans. For most of history, we didn't know they existed. Then in 2008, scientists found a tiny finger bone in a cave in Siberia. They sequenced the DNA and realized it belonged to a completely new species of human, not Neanderthal, not Homo sapiens, but something else. They called them Denisovans. Now here's where it gets wild. Tibetans and Sherpas live at altitudes above 4,000 meters. That's 13,000 feet. At that height, oxygen levels are 40% lower than at sea level. Most people would pass out. Their blood would thicken. They'd risk stroke and heart failure. But Tibetans don't have that problem. And in 2014, scientists finally figured out why. Dr. Emilia Huerta Sanchez and her team published a study in the journal Nature. They analyzed the genomes of Tibetan people, and they found a gene called EPAS1. This gene controls how your body produces red blood cells at high altitude. And here's the shocking part. That gene didn't come from modern humans. It came from Denisovans. The Tibetans inherited this gene from interbreeding with Denisovans tens of thousands of years ago, and natural selection favored it so strongly that today almost 90% of Tibetans carry it. Without that gene, Tibetans couldn't survive where they live, but with it, they thrive. Every major human population on Earth carries some ancient advantage like this: skin tone adapted to sunlight, immune genes tailored to local diseases, metabolism suited to available food. We're not just Homo sapiens, we're a mix of every human species we ever met. But Denisovans didn't just mix with modern humans. They also mixed with Neanderthals, and we found proof. Her name was Deni, and she should have been impossible. In 2012, archaeologists were digging in Denisova cave in Siberia. They found a small bone fragment. Yeah, just a piece of a long bone. Nothing special. They sent it for DNA analysis. And what came back changed everything. The bone belonged to a 13-year-old girl. They called her Deni. And when scientists sequenced her genome in 2018, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Deni's mother was Neanderthal. Her father was Denisovan. She was a first-generation hybrid, the child of two different human species. This wasn't some rare accident. Denny's father also had Neanderthal ancestry from hundreds of generations earlier. That means interbreeding didn't just happen once. It happened over and over again for thousands of years. But here's the part that keeps scientists up at night. Denny's mother wasn't from Siberia. Her genome matched Neanderthals from Croatia. That's over 6,000 kilometers away. Somehow, Neanderthals were migrating across entire continents and mixing with other species everywhere they went. For decades, we were taught that Neanderthals and Denisovans went extinct because they couldn't compete with modern humans. But what if that's not true? What if they didn't go extinct at all? What if they were absorbed? And Denny wasn't the only impossible child. New research proves there's another species hiding in modern DNA, a ghost species, one we've never found bones for, and it's been hiding in West Africa this entire time. In 2020, researchers at UCLA did something that sounds like science fiction. Dr. Sriram Sankararaman and his team analyzed the genomes of 400 people from West Africa. They used a computer algorithm to look for DNA that didn't match modern humans, and they found it. So between 2 and 19% of West African DNA comes from a completely unknown archaic human species, a ghost population. We've never found their fossils. We don't know what they looked like. We don't even have a name for them. But they're inside living people right now. This ghost species split from the common ancestor of Neanderthals and modern humans somewhere between 360,000 and 1 million years ago. That's ancient, older than Neanderthals, older than Denisovans. The populations carrying this DNA include the Mende people of Sierra Leone, the Yoruba and Asan of Nigeria, and several groups in Gambia. Here's what blows my mind. Scientists didn't need fossils to discover this species. They found it purely through math, by comparing living people's genomes to each other and to Neanderthals. If we can find a ghost species without ever digging up a single bone, how many more are hiding in our DNA? Every time researchers sequence a new population, they find more ghosts, more unknown ancestors, more extinct species we didn't know existed. We're not just part Neanderthal. We're a blend of dozens of species, maybe more. And that brings us to one final question. The question nobody wants to answer. If 2 to 19% of your DNA comes from other species, what does human even mean? For thousands of years, we've told ourselves a simple story. Homo sapiens evolved in Africa. We left. We replaced everyone else. And now we're the only humans left. But that story is a lie. Modern humans are a hybrid species, a genetic mosaic. We carry Neanderthal DNA, Denisovan DNA, ghost population DNA, ancient African lineages that split off hundreds of thousands of years ago. Every population on Earth is mixed. The idea of pure ancestry doesn't exist, not genetically, not historically. Some researchers are now asking an even stranger question. Could we have inherited more than just genes? There's a field of science called epigenetics. It studies how trauma and environment can chemically mark your DNA, and those marks can be passed to your children. Children of Holocaust survivors carry stress markers in their genes. Children of famine victims have altered metabolism. If trauma can be inherited, could memory be inherited too? Could we carry echoes of Neanderthal experiences locked in our cells? We don't know. But what we do know is this. Your DNA isn't just a map of where you came from. It's a record of who came before you and what they survived. 40,000 years after they vanished, Neanderthals are still inside you, in your immunity, in your ability to speak, in your capacity to survive. We didn't replace them. We became them. But the story doesn't end there. Scientists estimate there are multiple unknown archaic species whose DNA exists in living people. Species whose fossils we've never found. Species that might have looked nothing like us. The more we sequence human genomes, the more ghosts we find. In Africa alone, researchers have detected at least 2 separate ghost populations, one that mixed with West Africans, another that interbred with Central African pygmy groups. Some of this archaic DNA predates the Neanderthal-human split by hundreds of thousands of years. These weren't cousins, they were distant relatives. Maybe even different branches of the human family tree we thought died out. But they didn't die out, not completely. They live in you. Here's the question that haunts me. How many extinct species are alive inside you that science hasn't named yet? Every genome tells a story, and we've barely started reading them. The next discovery could rewrite everything we think we know about being human, and it might come from you. If you've taken a DNA test, drop a comment. You might be carrying a ghost nobody's found yet.